The shares of South African construction companies fell yesterday after reports of corruption. It's speculated that companies colluded to fix prices and other contracts for major infrastructure projects worth at least 30 billion rand. Joining us to chat about this now is Hugo Chetty. He's a construction analyst at AfriFocus. Hugo, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Let's perhaps start off with an update of where we're at right now, because we've got the fast-track settlement process that it was initiated in 2011 still underway, and now new affidavits being presented to the Hawks and the National Prosecuting Authority.
So I think both are related. It's all relates to the same projects. I think what has come out now is that someone is the Stefanuti management team has sent an affidavit in through the City Press and to the Hawks stating that giving all the directors' names of the different listed companies that have been involved in the price fixing. So it's related to the previous cases that went on in the fast-track settlement. So I think it's just the Hawks that now will go ahead and prosecute these guys for fraud and corruption.
Hugo, it's a dirty business, isn't it? I mean, if you look at the Business Day report, it says more than 20 firms confessed to irregular conduct, I'm quoting directly from the article, by the way, in more than 300 projects and tenders worth close to 30 billion, and also the Stefanuti people coming forward and blowing it all out the water. So it just seems to be out in the open. So surely there is a case to be made now. Do you think prosecutions are going to follow? First of all, fines are going to be initiated, and also maybe certain executives prosecuted as well?
I think the fines will go ahead. The fines for the construction companies that have been involved in the bid rigging, those fines will go ahead, and I believe that the Competition Commission is in the final stages of negotiating with the companies in the settlements of the fines. And in terms of the directors that have been involved with the bid rigging, my gut feel is that they'll probably get prosecuted and kicked out of the board of those listed companies, which would be the right thing to do.
Overall, good or bad thing for the construction sector right now?
I would say for the construction sector currently, it would be a good thing, because then you've got all the dirty management that's out there and you're starting off with fresh, new, clean management teams.
But you've got companies that are paying pretty hefty fines, and many questioning the viability, the sustainability of those businesses once those fines are paid.
Sure, the fines won't be as hefty as the 10% that's normally charged. It'll be the range between 1% and 3%, and the companies will have 30 days to pay those fines. And I think most of the construction companies will, that's why they called it the fast track and settlement process. So the fines won't be as hectic, and they will be able to pay them off.
Mm-hmm.
Hugo, if you look at the way that the construction industry is structured at the moment, and whenever Alicia and I interview anyone from the construction industry, they talk about the margins on contracts being extremely skinny. They are rejecting certain contracts or tenders because the margins are just not enough, just in case there's some kind of mistake, a weather-related delay or whatever it is. Is this as a direct result of the fact that this cartel has been blown out of the water? In other words, in the old days, they would say, this is the price, you can do the bridge, I'll do the road, and we'll keep the margins at this level. Now that they are running scared and they can't collude together, the margins have shrunk to nothing, and that's why these companies are suffering.
I would agree with that comment. That is true. I think the guys no longer have the cartel available, so they cannot fix their prices anymore, so hence that they're seeing the lower margins.
Okay, so as a construction analyst then, if you're looking at the investment case the construction industry is actually putting on the table here, I mean, how's that looking in your books?
I still wouldn't be invested in construction stocks at the moment. I think there's a lot of, we still got to wait for the fines to come out and see how the company's order books are going to look. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are taking on works at the lower margins. And I think if you looked previously, you saw a lot of the construction companies that took on jobs and ended up cost overruns on those contracts, and they were making losses on it. So I think the guys are a bit wary now, and that's why they're kind of choosing their projects and not going at below the 3% margins.
Short term, we saw a big move on some of the stocks yesterday. I mean, looking at Marion Roberts now, for example, which isn't one of the companies in the articles I'm looking at in front of me now, it has been mentioned, but Marion Roberts flat, but a fairly torrid time yesterday. That was the short-term move. Do you think that the industry and its reputation has been done long-term damage, and fund managers who are more socially responsible these days than they might have been in the past are going to say to themselves, I don't want to have anything to do with this. This industry is now tainted.
That's potentially what could happen to the sector. With all the regulations, I think the fund managers would probably say that they want to be invested in companies that are involved in fraud and corruption.
Taking a look at the sector, I mean, it's price fixing, kickbacks. It seems to have been commonplace in the sector for decades now, and it's going to take some time, actually undoing it all, what's become common practice within the industry. Do you see the fines being imposed acting effectively enough?
Yes, I think that will be a wake-up call for our construction industry to get on a clean slate again.
How do you see this changing the competitive landscape?
Do you think also, Hugo, sorry,
I think it'll give the smaller guys a lot more. In my view, I think the tender process will become more structured and more rigorously watched. And I think the smaller guys will have more opportunity to go into bid for these projects, because if it's the big guys that have been colluding and they left the smaller guys out, it's now time for the smaller guys to take a piece of the pie.
And when it comes to the tender process, do you think the government will have a look at the big ones, the big boys, the ones that once this investigation is over come out looking dirtier than the others? Do you think the government will then punish them? And as you quite rightly said, the tender process will then favour the firms that have come out a little bit cleaner or haven't even been tainted, or even some new emerging companies. It does sort of shake up the industry enormously.
It does, and I think the government will probably look at those companies, the bigger listed companies, more carefully and allow the smaller guys to benefit from that, because we saw the last 2007 to about 2009 where the bigger companies enjoyed the huge profits. So I think that will allow for the smaller guys to opportunity for them.
Of course, still now uncertainty around this sector as a whole, as you alluded to a little earlier. When do you see a turnaround in this space?
My view has always been that I think the construction sector would probably turn towards the end of 2013, and I'd probably only look at investing in these stocks if there's value towards 2014.
Without being too, without favouriting any particular company, having seen all the evidence that has been going on and collected since 2009, Hugo, is there any one company that comes out of it clean, and you would say, given the evidence and given the reaction of the industry and the reaction of investors that we've just been speaking about over the last few minutes, this is the company that is the one that's going to benefit most from what has been a fairly unpleasant affair?
I think there's, from the top 5, there isn't no one that will benefit, because it's most likely that everyone will be fined. I think Group 5 stands a better chance because, according to the guys from Competition Commission, have cooperated with them and given them enough evidence towards the projects that they were involved in.